and welcome to Rapacious Reads. I'm Rebecca. Today, we're going to be talking about the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor. I want to say empire. No, he was not a whole continent. He was a Roman emperor from the year 161 to 180. And he was a notable Roman emperor in that he died of natural causes rather than being assassinated. So, good on you, Marcus. And part of that is attributed to his reflections in these meditations, and that he was diplomatic and stoic. Okay, so enough of the history of meditations. Let's do a history of my reading. So my exposure to the classics thus far has been largely Greek. I read the Iliad and the Odyssey, and last year I read the Metamorphoses by Ovid, and I read Daphnis and Chloe, and the plays by Sophocles. Oh, and some by Aeschylus, but not well. I didn't read them well. So I would say heavily Greek, starting to branch into Roman works. And that has colored how I view this text. So the first thing that I noticed is that the way the Greeks and Romans talk about the gods is very different. So I don't know if it's because I've been reading fiction thus far, and the way the gods are treated in public is different than your private reflections on the gods. Because in the Greek realm of things, the gods are stories. They have foibles. They do stupid shit, and wars result from the shit that they do. They're human and superhuman, but they're not perfect, and they're not gods in the Judeo-Christian sort of view, or that's at least how I read them through the Iliad and the Odyssey, and even the Metamorphoses. But Marcus Aurelius views them a bit differently. Here's a quote. If thou rememberest the gods, and that they wish not to be flattered, but wish all reasonable beings to be made like themselves. So that doesn't hold up with the whole Trojan War and the fact that Hera was insulted that a human wouldn't flatter her over Aphrodite. So we've got more Christian influences, I want to say, in the way Marcus Aurelius views the gods. And I would also say, especially with his viewing of Zeus, he talks about Zeus as God over the gods, and when he references a specific god, it's always only Zeus. He doesn't pay homage to individual gods besides Zeus. So I'm seeing a patriarchal sort of hierarchy building within the gods that's being enforced by Aurelius. So that's really interesting to me as compared with the way the Greek panoply seemed a lot more egalitarian, at least on the god level. Okay, so next I wanted to talk about Marcus Aurelius and toxic masculinity. So there was a quote early on in book 3, and it said, "Be cheerful also, and seek not external help, nor the tranquility which others give." So it's basically saying, like, be a man, don't share your emotions, like hide everything from other people and just present this calm surface. And I'm looking at it from like a mental health point of view, and I'm saying, no, like, this is so wrong. You need to share, you need to build communities. What are you doing, Aurelius? Like, this is where toxic masculinity came from, and this is like how Western society grew. But of course, I was overreacting, because we get to books 7 and 8. And book 7, he says, "Be not ashamed to be helped." And he's talking about how, as a soldier, you can accomplish much more when you work as part of a team than you could individually. And because it benefits the greater good, you should be asking for help. And then in book 8, he says, "Men exist for the sake of one another. Teach them then, or bear with them." So So he's saying this life is a social life, and you should live it as this. So I feel like Marcus maybe grew throughout these 12 books, and I'm very proud that he's no longer a toxic masculine type. Okay, so then he talks a lot about politics. And I guess the Meditations came off a lot more political than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting him to revere the political system, to revere the state, to revere law and order the way he did. Even starting from the first book on the first page, he says to endure freedom of speech. So to me, what he's saying is like everyone, every citizen, not everyone, every citizen deserves the right to speak. And then we will consider it all fairly, and then what is good will like sort of rise to the top. So he's very serious about allowing the political structure to exist free from interference. And he says at the end of rational animals is to follow the reason and the law of the most ancient city and polity. No, I wasn't sure there if he was referring to nature or if he was actually referring to rational animals being humans adhering to polity, like as in politics. And then there were some things which I wonder if are roots of communism. That which does no harm to the state does no harm to the citizen. In the case of every appearance of harm, apply this rule. If the state is not harmed by this, neither then am I harmed. And then later on in book 10, he says, nothing harms him who is really a citizen, which does not harm the state, nor yet does anything harm the state which does not harm law and order. So he's saying that like the universal good is the political system, and you have to uphold the political system above your personal motives, and that sort of giving up of personal ownership, it just kind of sounds like communism to me. So I'm just wondering if maybe that's where we got it from. Of course, like I could be completely wrong. I have never taken a politics course in my life. So next, he talks about the soul. And this is like the heart of the Meditations. This is probably why everyone reads it, is to see what he believes, what the ancient Greeks believed, what has changed about our belief systems over time. So the first is his reference to this daemon thing. Here we are. Live with the gods. And he does live with the gods, who constantly shows them his own soul is satisfied with that which is assigned to him, and that it does all the daemon wishes, which Zeus has given to every man for his guardian and guide, a portion of himself. And this is every man's understanding and reason. So this is actually sounding a lot like the Holy Spirit in Christian texts, that like a piece of the eternal exists within a human and sort of guides them through life. So I'm just wondering where Marcus Aurelius is getting this from. Which philosophers is he reading? Is he being exposed to Christianity? I'm probably gonna have to look into that. And then later on in book 12, he says, obedient to thy own daemon, who is the God, which is in me. So daemon comes up twice in these readings. I also wonder like if Philip Pullman from the Golden Compass got that idea from this text. Okay, so then we have Marcus Aurelius questioning his faith. He says, if there is a God, all is well. And if chance rules, do not then also be governed by it. So he's open to the idea that maybe the gods don't exist, but we should still act as if they do exist for the benefit of society and everyone, right? And he says either the gods have no power or they have power. And then from that, he takes it in the direction of how one should pray. So he said, instead of asking for impossible things, ask for control over yourself. Ask for the ability to do something yourself, to turn away from your desires. Because then it won't matter if the gods have power. You have that power. So I kind of agree with him there. You should act as if there are gods, but not be upset if there aren't, right? And so then he talks more about the soul. And I think Marcus Aurelius, above the gods, believes in a soul. The spherical form of the soul maintains its figure when it is neither extended towards an object, nor contracted inwards, nor dispersed, nor sinks down, but is illuminated by light, which it sees the truth and the truth of all things, and that truth which is itself. And he also says, every man's intelligence is a god. Okay, so we've got this Marcus Aurelius believing in the soul, kind of believing in the gods, but then in book 12, he just like does a 360 and he goes Buddhist. Right, I know. Okay, there is one light of the sun, though it is distributed over walls, mountains, and other things infinite. There is one common substance, though it is distributed among countless bodies which have their several qualities. There is one soul, though it is distributed among infinite natures and individual circumscriptions. There is one intelligent soul, though it seems to be divided. And then later on, this is a lot like what Buddhist texts say. Like, so what, you're going to stop existing, so what, you're going to be part of like the oneness that is the universe. What do you care? Marcus Aurelius's version of that is, what dost thou wish? To continue to exist? Well, dost thou wish to have sensation, movement, growth? And then again to cease to grow? To use thy speech? To think? What is there in all these things which seems to thee worth desiring? So, yeah, so he sort of believes that maybe the individual doesn't exist. Maybe we're just part of the infinite and we are resorbed back into that in death, which I would also like to know, where is he getting these ideas from? Which philosophers, how did this enter the Western world? And why didn't it grow the way his other ideas, his more individualistic ideas grow? Okay, so also, Marcus Aurelius is a hypocrite. A lot of the times throughout the book, he's talking about posthumous fame. He's like, stop worrying about becoming famous. Like, what does it matter? It's just gonna be stupid people, like the same people that are alive now, except later, like being interested in you. What do you care about being famous? But he's speaking from a position of posthumous fame. Like he's one of the most famous ancient philosophers. So he doesn't have a leg to stand on. And then the other thing is, and this is kind of just, I guess, a criticism of Stoics in general, is their obsession with death. Every page, every book, everything is, don't forget, you're gonna die. Like, you will cease to exist tomorrow. Live as if today's your last day. What does it matter if you have 1 day or 10 years? It's the same amount of time, really. And, like, kiss your child goodnight and think, oh, he may not wake in the morning. Like, everyone's gonna die. But this obsession with death sort of takes the joy out of living. We can be, like, very aware that we're gonna die, but still enjoy life. And I think Marcus Aurelius misses that. And I don't know. I guess I'm just a bit more Epicurean than the Stoics. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Marcus Aurelius. Let me know what you thought. And yeah, have a good week.